welcome to Undercurrent. I'm your host, Lucy Marchant. Last month, an alliance of organisations got together to start a new campaign called Safe Systems to reform the Tenancy Act and help women fleeing domestic violence. I met with 3 of the women behind the new campaign. Over a third of Western Australia's homeless are women fleeing domestic violence. These women are not getting the help they need as the state is not currently well resourced to deal with the issue. I'm here with the women behind a new campaign called Safe Systems, which aims to help these women. Helen, what is the Safe Systems campaign all about?
What it's about is a group of organisations who work with women fleeing domestic violence have come together to say that while there might be good initiatives going on in justice, in child protection, in housing, etc., what we need is a much more cohesive response to the issues of domestic violence. So we represent different areas such as the legal service, the housing services, the women's refuge, women's health, the unions who are interested, for example, in domestic family violence leave-in awards. So there's a range of different groups who've come together to say we need a much more coordinated approach. We need whatever government is in power after the next state election to give a much better and higher priority to the issues around domestic violence. And so this coalition was formed. We've got a year, 11 months now till the next state election, and we hope to ensure that family and domestic violence is one of the absolute key issues that every candidate, every political party will address.
Legally, what needs to change at the moment?
What we need is a much more comprehensive approach to the law. We need a Domestic and Family Violence Act in its own right, with a whole range of components that sit within that actually give greater protection to victims and send a much stronger message to perpetrators who often, as we see, when presented in the courts for breaches of restraining orders, receiving, $200 fines, and these are after multiple breaches. So even though the law's changed in terms of breaches of restraining orders at 3 strikes and you're supposed to get an imprisonment sentence, we're finding that's not happening in quite a number of cases. So we really need a much more robust, proactive bit of legislation that then can influence practice and resource programs better to respond and protect victims, but also to work with perpetrators around their use of violence and how that, there's opportunities there for change as well.
So let's talk about the women, let's talk about the problems that they're facing, their health, physically, mentally. What sorts of issues are they facing?
Well, women continue to live in fear for their own safety and the safety of their children after the relationship has ended. There are significant health, social and economic effects from family and domestic violence. And so it's very important, actually it's crucial to have systems that are safe for women and children and that support their recovery. And this would include safe and affordable housing and also legal processes that are affordable, accessible, and also reflect the seriousness of women's experiences and ongoing experiences after the relationship has ended. And also things like the paid domestic violence leave are also important supports to women and give them opportunities to seek the supports and services that they need when they're trying to recover from the violence. And of course, those effective and timely perpetrator programs are enormously important when it comes to women's and children's safety.
So how can people help? How can people get involved, help with the campaign?
We have a website where people, organisations can put their logos to show that they're supporting the Safe Systems campaign. What we've also done is written to each of the major parties and advised them that the coalition has been launched, that we'd like to know what their policies are, that we're happy to meet with them to talk further about their policies and what they can do. We intend to publish those responses on the website so everyone can see how the parties have responded to these issues around family violence. So it's very much geared around ensuring that the political parties do take this matter very seriously and do look at what is genuinely needed to ensure that the systems that we have in place are much better coordinated so that women and children are safe.
Are there any ways that myself, the viewers, yourselves can get involved? Anything small that they can do to help out?
Well, I think they can sign on to, there's a website that we have, www.safesystemswa.org, so they can go on and sign on their pledge of support as an individual or an organisation. I think they can also become involved in any actions that may roll out over the next 6 to 9 months that will be up on the website. So there's opportunities for people to perhaps attend a rally or sign a petition or those types of actions that might come out of this campaign.
That's great. Thank you very much. Lucy Marchant, reporting for Undercurrent. Last week, our Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull announced the repeal of the Road Remuneration Act. Tibor met with Greg Ross to discuss the impact of this move on truck drivers and small contractors.
Malcolm Turnbull last week in Perth announced they gonna get rid of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal Act. And here we are with Greg Ross, a truckie of 40 years of experience, asking what the government is doing, why they want to get rid of this act, and how is it going to help the truck drivers, the small contractors, the family businesses.
All they're doing is keeping a lid on prices, and in doing so they're just going to break and bankrupt more and more people who own large prime movers. They're not remotely interested in families, they are interested in supporting big business. There's nothing wrong with helping big business, but there's an awful lot wrong with what they've done to small truck owners and are going to do in the future.
But they're saying, the Minister and the Prime Minister, they're helping the small businesses, the mums and dads.
Well, I'd really like to know how, when times are really tight and nobody's really making good money at all, that's saying, look, we're going to ensure you can't make any sort of wage rise or price increase, you're going to earn less money, actually helps them. No matter how I try to do the maths, and I'm not an accountant, no matter how I try to do it, I can't get to where Senator Cash and Prime Minister Turnbull have got to. But they've got there, and there's probably 3%, 4% of owner-driver truckies in Australia seem to believe them.
How the truckie business is working, so where is the position and what's the position of the small contractors in the hierarchy?
The small contractor is just caught up in an absolute dog-eat-dog business in that nothing is secure. It's a completely open free market, and most of us, myself included, would say overall that's the right way, a free market. But it doesn't work when X number of people can buy, or anybody can go and buy a truck as long as they've got security of a house, and that's what the banks want. No house, you won't buy a truck, because that's the security, not the prime mover, not the truck, because that is a depreciating asset. If you pay $500,000 for a truck today, for a brand new truck, I would say at the end of 12 months' time with 400, 500,000 Ks on it, that prime mover is probably worth 100, 110,000 wholesale. That's what it's worth. But the house, even in today's market, has probably gone up 2%. So the bank can't lose. The big contractors, the big trucking companies, they can't lose, because if that poor person loses his truck, loses his house, there's 2 other people very, very happy, 5 other people very happy to step up, especially now. A lot of truck drivers have lost jobs at the mines because of the contraction in our mining industry. So there's a lot of people out there looking for work.
What's the solution, Greg? What do you see as a solution as a truckie?
The solution really is for us all to look at ourselves as Australians and give these people a fair go. That's what the solution is. We have to say, we need these people on the road, we need them with their trucks, we need their businesses, but we also need to pay them a fair remuneration, to pay them properly, to ensure they can be. A subcontractor, an owner-driver needs to be paid X amount of dollars to make it safe for him to make sure he can run a viable business.
Tibor reporting to Undercurrent.
ANZAC Day is regarded as one of Australia's most important national holidays. Detchen asked the public what it meant to them.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
ANZAC Day, celebrated on the 25th of April, is one of the most important national occasions in Australia. It marks the anniversary of the first major battle fought by the Australian and New Zealand forces during the First World War. However, over the years, there have been arguments over the significance and relevance of the day. So as Australia gears up to celebrate this year's ANZAC Day, we hit the streets to find out what the people have to say on the matter. What do you understand by ANZAC Day? What does it mean to you?
The day that our soldiers fought at Gallipoli for our countries, for both Australia and New Zealand.
It's a day where we honour veterans from that particular time, and I think everyone takes the morning out to appreciate the sacrifice that all those people made.
Think about what our diggers, the people in the armed forces, both past and present, the sacrifices they've made for Australia.
It's an opportunity to remember the freedom that we have, and that there is sacrifice that has happened with that freedom.
ANZAC Day is basically the founding of the Australian Fighting Forces. They landed on Gallipoli falsely in the wrong spot, but they made the best of it, and that's what ANZAC means, making the best of what we've got.
How important is the day to you personally?
Personally, not much, but those soldiers did fight for our country, and somewhere in this we're free today because of them. They've given up their lives for us, so I think it's really important for their families that we pay respect to them, by commemorating them on the day.
I think it's very important, and the younger people coming through, my grandson as well, fortunately hasn't known war, but he needs to be aware of it.
So you think it's still relevant, ANZAC Day is still relevant?
Very relevant in the sense of who we are today, and obviously what we will be in the future, because our history is what defines where we go and who we are.
No, I think it's more relevant now. It gives Australians an identity. It also focuses Australians on the stupidity of war.
I think all of our history is relevant, and that goes way back to the heritage of this country as well.
For me, a little bit not relevant nowadays, but you can't just forget about them.
We've also had people expressing views like ANZAC Day is not relevant in a culturally diverse Australia. What are your views on that?
So, this comes in, another reason why it's not relevant to so many people is, they're not connected to their families.
Yeah, I'd say it's a bit offensive, to those people that lost their lives. But I think there's a lot of days, commemorating the multicultural society as well.
People who come to our country, need to be mindful of our history, especially if you become a citizen or a permanent resident of Australia. And I think that's the same if we go to other countries as well. We need to be mindful of their history and their culture.
And it's our tradition. By all means live here, by all means own religion and own way of life to some extent, but we're not going to change. Welcome to Australia, but we're not going to change and join with Australians to develop our country.
This is Tichinongmo reporting for Undercurrent.
Stay with us on West TV. We'll be back for more Undercurrent after a short break. Welcome back to Undercurrent. Residents in Hillary's are angered over a debacle with Western Power. The residents say that workers sprayed silicone all over the power lines around their houses, and this caused damage to their health, properties and cars. I'm here with Bruce, who claims to have been affected by the spraying of a substance on the power lines around his house that have affected his vehicles, his health and his property. What has happened to your skin and health since the spraying of the lines on your property?
Well, when they first sprayed it took me a while to find out it was silicone, and since then I've been waiting for them to clean it up or do something, and nothing's actually happened. So I started working on one of my motorhomes and I got it all over my hands, and the data sheet says wash it off with soap and water, so I kept washing my hands, and then I kept spreading it further up my hands, and then I started getting major headaches and it started burning, and now I've got all silicone burns up my hands. And then the headaches, they wouldn't go for 3 days, and the whole lot is feels like it's heat activated.
So wait, these symptoms that you've been having, these skin rashes and these headaches, has the doctor told you that it is likely that the silicone is responsible for that?
Yeah, it does appear to be silicone related, and there are other neighbours that have also been affected by the silicone. There's a bloke up the road that's got the burns over his whole body, and he's having a lot of trouble with it. So he's off to see the same person. But yeah, his burns are a lot worse than mine. There's other neighbours that are affected, and there'll be a lot of other people out there that are affected that don't realise. They haven't realised the damage to their property. All I know about is the damage to motor vehicles. When silicone gets on the paint of these cars, they'll never be painted again. A lot of mine have been affected. Roofs, gutters, where all this stuff is, the surface won't be painted because of the silicone. It penetrates through the paint, it gets into it, and that's it, can't be painted. So it's over all the vehicles. But working on my own vehicle that had it on, that hasn't been cleaned by them or anything, I've got it into my skin, and yeah, it's made me sick.
How do you know what happened? Did you witness the spraying?
No, I came back a day and a half, heading towards 2 days after it had happened, and then I seen all my stuff was all covered, so I didn't actually see it. Someone's given me some footage and showed me what transpired.
Can you describe the footage that you have? Can you describe how they sprayed the lines?
Yeah, the line is meant to have a fine mist spray around the insulators, a very fine mist spray that only goes on the insulators. When you see the footage, you can see the clouds, big mobs of it, drifting up the street. You know, they sprayed it with no warning that they were spraying it. They sprayed it on a Sunday, right? Nobody was informed. They just turned up on a Sunday, lunchtime, and started spraying, right? And everybody thought, oh, well, they wouldn't spray anything unsafe. The lady next door thought it was just water. People believed it was just water that they were spraying, washing them.
How much damage has been caused in sort of a dollar value?
I wouldn't want to even guess that, eh? It's all over the roofs. It's from the front of the property right to the back of the property. There's both motorhomes, the 2 bobcats, the tractor, 3 vehicles are all covered. My motorbike and the scooters, both jet skis, are all covered in it. Everything around me here has got a fine coating spray on it as well.
What do you want to be done to sort of fix the problem?
Well, I think the first thing you need is a public awareness, because there's other people that have got it all over their stuff. They need to be notified, and then they also know if they've got lots of this silicone around, it's no good for your health, right? The joke is they're keeping everyone locked apart. There's obviously workers, because they weren't wearing breathing apparatus or that type of safety gear. They were fully clothed. You can see it in the videos. You know, they're going to have health issues. They've been breathing the stuff in.
Have you had any other issues with Western Power in the past, or is this your first bad experience?
No, this is the first thing. You know, someone just made a big monumental stuff up by spraying it in a suburban area. You know, it wasn't meant to be for that. You know, they'll argue the point and say they've been doing it for years here, but I don't think they have. They've just been cleaning them. you know, because if they were spraying silicone around like this a couple of years ago, I would have noticed it. It wrecks your stuff and it wrecks your health, and people need to be aware.
Lucy Marchant, reporting for Undercurrent. The Royal Commission and award-winning film Spotlight have once again highlighted the issue of child sexual abuse. This is people thinking about what the Catholic Church is doing today to prevent child abuse. The Archdiocese of Perth might just have the answer. James Rogers with the report.
It's no secret that the Catholic Church has a disgraceful record of dealing with cases of sexual abuse. The Safeguarding Project seeks to change that. Launched here in Perth last year, it's the first of its kind in Australia. I spoke with Andrea Muslin, Project Coordinator and Police Officer.
I believe the Catholic community has much for which to thank the Royal Commission in bringing to light the areas where we are needing to face the past and to make every effort possible to change the future. I do not believe we can afford to sit back and wait for the Commission's final report and the recommendations to be published. We must act boldly now.
The Safeguarding Project has been implemented in order to create safer churches, or create the church as a child-safe organisation. That's our aim. Our aim is to transport the church into a safe organisation. But that said, James, in the work that I've been doing over the last 16 months, for want of a better word, that our churches are safe places, and the problem is that they can always be safer, and so that's the angle that we're working on. I think, you know, from media coverage in the past, you know, it would appear that churches aren't safe places, but from my knowledge and my working knowledge of recent months, I can tell you that for the best part they are safe, but they can always be safer. And so safeguarding and the Safeguarding Project is about reducing the opportunity. And unfortunately, anywhere where children are, there is opportunity. And historically, in churches and church-run organisations, there has been large amounts of opportunity for child sex offenders to not only gain access to children, but to commit the crimes and to get away with it. Now that said, James, there is not as much opportunity organically in churches as there was historically, because no longer are the orphanages run by the churches, no longer are there large residential colleges for children who don't reside with their parents. You know, unmarried mothers or teenage pregnancies, whilst we have lots of services to help these women, there are not residential colleges where we look after them. So times have changed. We are in a completely different era to where we were historically. But like I said, wherever there are children, there is opportunity and there is risk. And therefore we've identified that, and we set out to make our church a very safe place for children, and the safest it can possibly be. And that doesn't mean that we're going to ensure the safety of children, because we can't do that. But we're going to heighten it, and we're going to do our utmost to make sure our church is a safe church. People sometimes think, well, I can't do it. It's not my job. That's not my job to do that. And that's what I like about the Safeguarding Project, because I have all these people who have come up and said, well, yes, it is my job. It's not officially my job. I'm not going to be paid to do this job, but it is my job because it's important that I play my part. And in the training of all the safeguarding officers, I make sure that I'm very clear around the fact that it's not your job to solve this problem for the world. It's your job to play your part. And once you do that on the self level, that's when change is going to come about. That's when real change comes about. So now what we have, which we've never had before, are 2 designated officers, and in some parishes more than 2, designated officers who are there for that purpose, to help, to listen, and then to report. And I make it very clear to the safeguarding officers that they are not the fix-it person. They don't have to fix this problem. They're not the judge and jury. They're not the counsellor. They are the person who will listen to a complaint and refer that complaint on within statutory procedures and requirements. So that's their primary role. And we promote that. We promote that in the parishes. The parish has a big porch poster with their photographs, with their contact details. We are now currently setting up websites for all the parishes, so if someone's got a concern, they may go to the website and all the information will be on the website. Well, it would be a good idea that all organisations that deal with children have safeguarding measures in place, many of which do, I'm sure they do. And as I said earlier, wherever there are children, there's risk. So therefore, the sheer fact that children are in their care would then deem that safeguarding is required. And I think across the board we're getting better at that. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but we're getting better at it. And I think the realisation, and Royal Commission has brought that realisation into the government sector, well, non-government sector more so, and into schools, that we do actually have to have an active, proactive role in protecting children. Just responding to it when it happens is not enough. We have a responsibility to protect children, and adults ultimately are responsible for the protection of children.
You should report any case of abuse to the police. 131 444. James Rogers reporting for Undercurrent.
Gals WA are a choral group who sing in 4-part harmony. They welcome members from all colours of the sexuality and gender diversity rainbow. Angela McDonald reports.
It's Thursday night and I'm lucky here at the rehearsal for the Gay and Lesbian Choir of Western Australia. Family atmosphere, social environment, and everybody sharing and preparing for Sing for Health, a concert that's coming up in May. And here they are behind me, Gals WA singing. How are you preparing your choir for the concert in May?
Oh, in so many ways. So, I mean, we're working on the repertoire and fine-tuning, but we're also exploring our journeys within that, I suppose, and discussing it. A lot of songs, so it's finding our journey through each of those and looking at what triggers within us and feeling safe enough to do that and to then share. It's about sharing, I suppose.
And how important is it to have Gals WA?
Oh, so important. We need to have a place where people can be safe on every level, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually and on every level.
And the choir's growing?
Yeah, it's growing.
It's not just coming because you like singing, it's coming for see other people and make your life different 1 day a week. And what I really like here is coming and have the unconditional love and be no judge. So we're coming because this is such a good place to come every time. And now that I changed job and I finish like very late, sometimes I finish at 7:30, sometimes I finish at 8, I'm just looking forward every time to just jump in the car and come here straight away after work. So for me it's very important, this once a week.
Is that good for you?
Yes, I've been doing musical theatre since I was a child, and I think that being part of a choir now is a completely different experience, but being part of that choir, as my colleagues have said, is such a safe place for us here, and because we accept everyone, whatever in whatever diversity or gender they are, whether they're gay, straight, or bisexual, we accept everyone, even if they're straight, really. And we also do not have any auditions on this choir, so it's more the passion of singing as opposed to the talent of singing or having that quality.
And what do you feel when you're on stage? What sort of buzz?
It's just a fantastic experience watching Claire. Feeling her drawing us together as a group to produce the absolute best we can, and then when you see the reaction from the audience, it's just a really great feeling.
And would you recommend the community get more involved in singing?
And it builds community. It draws people together.
I'm Angela McDonald for Undercurrent.
Thank you for watching Undercurrent. At West TV, we hope you have a lovely long weekend. Make sure you catch up with us next week for our last episode of Undercurrent.